Hi, Carmen.
Zoom meeting,
Can you hear us okay?
It says,
You gotta say that loud.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay, John?
You're coming in good.
Which is good, those are two people that helped.
Wow.
Through the district, yeah,
When did you find that out?
2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
I don't know, it's not public yet, but it's public enough,
that's okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
She was very dedicated to literature, like to like literacy for kids too, they had to go to school and they didn't go there. So. Yeah.
We might have to.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
We got, there's ones up there.
That's
What I get up
Yeah,
there.
and I got some
Yeah,
extension
so
cords.
they each help, right?
Make it through work session.
I spent the whole day at Metro. It's good. We're gonna start off with 4 credits. And I can start off with 15. Yeah, Monday through Thursday.
I started, have you ever seen the show Atypical?
I know. You should.
You're in a group, you should check it out. It actually has kids that are on the spectrum as actors in it.
Oh, that's
But
really nice.
Cooper's very much like the main character. And I think it's pretty good. I mean, you know, I don't have a kid on the spectrum, but.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, I'd like to welcome everybody to the City of Idaho Springs, June 13th, 2022 work session. And it is 6:02. And we are going to kick it off with an update on the train coach restoration.
Would you like to join us up here?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Mayor and Council, as you know, we've been working to restore the coach, the Idaho Springs coach that sits back here, coach number 70. It's property of the town and it ran on this rail line. So it's a significant historical, it's part of our historical fabric here in the city. We have been working on with Historic Rail Ventures to restore the coach to repair some of the damage from I-70 and the weather that's happened over the last 160 years completely, all of it. And so that work has been underway now for about, I think, 18 months or, yeah, about 18 months, about 2 years. Yeah, they've done a really great job. They also are very welcoming of our staff and council and anybody who'd like to go see the coach and kind of what they've done, which is pretty impressive when you see the work and how they built that thing, because it's, you know, it's a very different looking on the inside from a structural standpoint than you'd think. We have done some work, the work we've done to date with them, it was budgeted last year. And we also had a grant from Freeport to buy some of the wood that we need for the work and to do the windows. And we're ready to start the next bit of this project. One of the things that we did with this is we budgeted money from our capital improvement plan for the coach because some of this work won't be covered by the state grants. There are pieces that the state will likely cover, and that's, I think, kind of getting pretty close after we finish this next round of work. This is the work that we can't document that's been done before with the state grant. After that, it's pretty much all money that we probably can partner with them on. One of the really cool things about the coach, and I'll let Phil talk about this a little bit more, is it potentially could be in working condition once it's done, which could be a really great thing for the city. You know, I don't know how it would work, but if you envision maybe every 3 or 4 years, it'd have a limited run in Georgetown, and that could pay for its capital maintenance and repairs in the future, so we don't run into a situation again where it just is rotting on the side of the road. I think it would be a really cool thing. Tangential to this conversation, we also have money in our budget this year to design a new structure for the train so that we can keep it out of the elements and specifically keep it out of some of that salt spray that comes off I-70, which is just not good for the wood. I have put in your packet the project plan for 2022. It details about $57,000 worth of work. One of the things on here that I'll let Phil talk about a little bit more is just the oil lamps that are in the train. They're the original ones. They need a little bit of love. That's part of this next project. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you guys have been doing and kind of this next phase of work?
Sure. I can talk about the lamps. Subsequent to submitting this proposal for work, I was made aware of and talked with a company in Washington State that specializes in restoration of lamps just like this. And I sent them a lot of detailed information, and they said that they could replicate the missing parts and restore.
She's here.
Yeah. and fully restore the lamps, including putting LED lamps up in where the stack, there were kerosene lamps, and up in the stack, they put a LED light that makes it look like the lamps are lit, but I don't think any of us want to mess around with kerosene lights inside a wooden car unless we don't have to. So in the very start of this, we took a wild guess at restoring these lamps at about $20,000 because there are some pieces missing, and the missing pieces basically need to be replicated. We were able to find another similar lamp to it that includes some pieces, but not all the pieces. So anyway, this company came back with a bid to restore all 3 lamps completely of $12,700, which in my experience for that kind of work seemed like a really good deal. So I guess the question would be, I don't know if you want to consider adding that on to this proposal, because in this proposal, I had figured $500 just for cleaning it up and trying to figure out what we were going to do with them. And like I say, subsequent to that, this company came to light and they're ready to get started. He says, you send them to us, we'll get started. Probably take them 6 or 8 months at least to get them done, because it's a lot of labor work to be done.
From city budgeting perspective, that is not included in the motion that I gave you for this work. I do think that this work, it's really important that, as we get going, this is one of the things that people are going to see the most is these lamps. I think there could be a conversation about whether we engage in that work this year or whether we try to incorporate that into a bigger grant. Typically, the state funds exterior restoration stuff. And so I think that's a piece of what we want to consider here. But the lamps are, they're a very important part of this project. So we want to make sure that when we get to that part, they're correct. But I did want to express I might be able to find a grant for this work too, so it wouldn't come out of our capital improvement fund. Do you guys have any questions about the coach or the train? One thing that's really cool about the train, I don't know if you know, but a original CNS bell was donated to Historic Rail Ventures for our engine over here. And that bell could ring again. I think it could be a really cool thing to put on the train. Anything train related, you have to be really careful because it's valuable. And so we need to protect it and make sure it's connected in such a way that it won't be destroyed. But our train is a really significant resource here. And I think that the work we've done on the coach has probably extended its life already. And we are very close to basically weatherizing the box. So it could be, the exterior of the coach will be in pretty good shape following this work. And then it's just about restoring the interior. And we had really good drawings and pictures and everything of that work so that we can take that a chunk at a time too. We've really been working with, Historic Rail Ventures has been really great to us as a partner in working on that thing in chunks so that we can keep moving and it doesn't kind of end up in purgatory of a project. And we are very close to really actionable process or progress on this. So that's what I've included in my staff report. I think worthy of consideration if you guys want to do an add alternate to include the lamp work on there, or or how you want to do that.
As you can imagine, one of our challenges is our own labor to do work like this, because it is very specialized work. Luckily, we've had Mike Horner, who is a resident of the city, who has worked on it in the past, who is helping lead the restoration. But Mike is finding physically he can't do as much of the heavy work as he would like to do or he thought he could do. We do have on staff one person who's actually a new staff member who has demonstrated interest and some ability to work on the car. So we're, as John said, we're kind of trying to keep the momentum going and keep people on it. And as much as is possible with everything else that you can imagine that we're doing up there, keeping the train running, I think we've made a lot of good progress on it and we can continue to do so.
Is there any information on our website about the train and the progress that we're making on it that could be tied to an organization? I'm sure there's people out there that love to go look at old trains and then maybe they'd want to donate money to some of the process.
That's a wonderful idea and we can put that together. That would be a wonderful idea. I will get working on that.
I think train people are very protective of their trains. I know that when Como they set up a track for the first time, I think it was like in 75 years. You might have even been there when it ran. I was out there too.
Yes. Yep.
And it wasn't a huge crowd, but people were very excited about seeing that little stretch of track run. So I think that would be kind of a nice way for people to participate.
Okay,
And I would just ask, would council be comfortable, when the time is appropriate, to have the $57,000 plus the light restoration option, knowing that we will pursue grants?
we did budget $100,000 this year for the tree. So
Okay, this is 57. If we add,
It's a 12-7 for the.
right,
12.7
so,
for
okay,
lights.
yeah,
Right,
all right,
so it's not using all 100,000 up,
right.
yeah.
And does that 100,000 also include the structure that's?
I think we budgeted for design for the structure in a different, okay, I believe it was separate, but we can find out. But I don't think that worked. We have some people in town that can help us and we have some ideas about what that might look like. So even including potentially moving buildings there that could fit in that space. So I think that piece we need to work on too, and I probably will be coming for a work session with you relatively soon on that.
Okay. Thank you.
So another question I have is in a resolution that you would approve, are you basically just extending the current service contract that we have? Or are you doing a new one on the same terms, or how does that work?
This would be a new agreement for
Okay.
this next phase with your proposal attached.
Okay, okay.
And as
Well,
I
the only-
understand,
And I think we're good with that. The only thing that we need to change, as you can imagine, we do need to increase our labor rate. But I still think our labor rate is outstandingly affordable. We're gonna have to go up to $45 an hour for labor rate, which for this kind of specialized work is really, really good. So,
I'm not splitting hairs with you, but I was doing the math and this, I thought it was 46.
okay.
Is it 45?
Well, I've discussed it with Mark,
Right.
Rayville, and
Right.
he said that for this next phase, it would be 45.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, because I
And we were
was
at
just doing I was doing a little quick math and
42.
I thought it was 46 for labor and about 64 on supervisory.
Right, right. That's right in the
Okay.
neighborhood.
All right, just making sure.
Right.
so bottom line, you're pretty much wrapped up the most recent agreement, the task order, and really to keep the work going, we need this new agreement to
Yes,
carry us
that's
through the
correct.
rest of the year. And that's the objective, is to keep the work going.
Correct, yes.
What is the timeline for finishing this next piece? Like, how many months do you need for this?
Well, this next piece, this package that we put together is what we think we can accomplish between now and the end of this year. The end of this year. As far as coming up with a idea of when the entire project would be complete, that's a little harder to pinpoint, but if we can continue to make progress like we have been, I would say by the end of next year or the middle of 24, it could very likely be complete.
Part of that is we still have wood seasoning for use, correct? Or is
Yes.
that- Okay,
Yes.
so we had to buy some relatively fancy wood for that thing.
You have kids on there.
There's so many kids, including myself, who grew up playing on that train. It's an important thing here. But that wood, it's just expensive, so you have to make sure it's dry and seasoned. So they've been doing that at their shop.
Mhm.
They ended up I don't want to say bargain shopping, but they got a really good deal on what they were able to get for the train. And I would really invite council and any of the public that want to go see it. You can make an appointment with Phil. You can go check it out. It's really amazing how they built that thing.
Yeah, I've checked on it several times with your staff there and the time when they weren't there.
Mhm.
Because the building is open and.
Yeah, we have the building open to the public now, and we have where the coach is being worked on, kind of cordoned off to the side. But it's a really interesting thing for people to be able to come in and look at.
I agree, and I've been just consistently impressed with, the ability. I just feel like we're really fortunate that this is in our backyard. I understand my corner worked on the 1983 restoration.
Yes, he did.
Same,
Yes, he did.
that we actually even have some of the same talent.
Mhm.
Like I said, I feel we're very fortunate to have it just up the street, so.
Well, thank you. We're excited to be working on it. We are.
So council, Would this, there is a motion in my staff report during the regular meeting to approve this request. Should you want to include the light work, we would probably just need to modify the motion to reflect that.
Yeah, I was just making sure council was good with that. If that's the general consensus, we'll move forward with that. All right, anything more on the train restoration? All right, thanks. Next thing up, parking rates on the 103 city parking lot.
Sure, no problem.
Mayor and council,
Thank you.
thank you, Phil. Sure thing. We began charging for the parking lot that's located on Highway 103 south of the exit 240 on I-70 in the beginning of May. And the reason for this is because it gets quite a bit of use on weekends with bikers and things like that. And it's important kind of resource for the whole community to use. Right now, city residents, county residents, employees, and visitors with handicap placards or plates can park for free in this slot. But when we set the rate structure in the lot, we set it at the same rate structure as everything else. We've been talking to people through the community, and I think it's generally been a positive change. But one of the things we've noticed is that it would be good for the city to have a cheaper parking lot, and it is a little bit farther away, so it kind of create an economic incentive to park over there if you're able. There's 2 routes to town that are relatively safe to get from there to town. So you can either go through Water Wheel Park and come up by City Hall, or you could cross the intersection there and come across the bridge, and then you'd be downtown as well. Because of its distance from downtown, we're thinking that we could modify the rate structure slightly to create that economic incentive. We propose $2 an hour flat rate for that parking lot. It wouldn't change overnight parking at all. It would still be a 24-hour lot as it currently is. It would just be during the paid parking hours, we'd be managing it and having ambassadors go down there and make sure things are correct. I think that flat rate is going to work pretty well for the most part, but I wanted to present it to you before we talk to Interstate about changing the rate structure.
So if there are kids, the family's gonna go hiking in the Virginia Canyon Mountain Bike Park and they wanna get something to eat afterwards, it doesn't matter if they spend the entire day.
Yeah,
It would be the $2 every hour, and it wouldn't change and bump up to $5 after 3 hours. So I think that's good. We have a place to do that.
You're talking about the lot by the exit?
correct. And then one other consideration there, that lot eventually it may be given to some other purpose in the near future. We currently use it for that parking facility, and there's about 50 spaces in there right now. It gets pretty busy on the weekends, weekdays during the summer, it's busy. I think this structure is a lot better for a parking lot where it is.
Yeah, we don't need to encourage turnover like, right here in the main city parking lot.
It's probably likely that lot's gonna fill up and then there's now gonna be no spots available. Have we considered that?
It could. I think that right now
On weekends, probably.
Yeah, this parking structure, this rate structure is going to help when we do get a little bit more congested because it's still going to create a little bit of that incentive, just not quite the same as in the big parking lots. And I think that we still want to promote these kinds of uses if we can. So that's one of the nice things about our structure is we can change it if we need to, if things change. But for now, I think this is probably a pretty good model. I've been kind of looking at parking, and I think some other staff, and I think Mary, you might have looked this weekend to see how busy it was going. And we do see the use when we are at busier times. So this will just give us a little bit easier time managing it and getting ambassadors over there to check on stuff.
I looked Saturday and Sunday, I did see good use, but there were still spots.
But I mean, if we make it $2 flat, I think it's gonna fill up.
Might well, and just depending on how,
Because somebody can park there all day, right?
yeah, how long of an activity they got going on. Because I think folks would rather park in our main parking lot and be closer.
We just need more parking lot. And then the other thing is, how do you manage marking that lot so that they know that? Is that by signage or
Yeah, this
city
is
website?
a conversation we need to have with planning commission as well. There are some tools that our code is not, that it don't quite work with our code that might work well in the parking lots, especially that parking lot. One of the things is the use of flag signs or sandwich boards. because you can put them in more immediate places for people to see. And our code doesn't allow for the use of either. And so we need to talk about what that looks like and if there's things that the community would support to make sure that we have some of that more, I don't want to say in your face, but more direct signage like that.
All right, anything further on the parking?
So council, are you giving the direction to change that grade structure?
Well, I like it. How does everybody else
Are we
feel?
allowed to do that during work sessions? I mean, what is the,
Yeah, I didn't think we could. put it-
This doesn't
Yeah.
require a vote, it just requires.
you just want like a
Yes.
yay or
Or
nay?
any-
That's a vote.
It's just direction
Yeah.
on
Right,
this.
I'll just let Mayor do his thing then.
Well, I want the general consensus here. How does everybody feel about
I think the flat rate is great.
$2?
I like. the
You got something going on. And I'm just thinking, we certainly will have things like a mountain bike park or folks hiking and then not wanting to feel rushed because, you know, they want to get something to eat or whatever. At least you could park in theory all day. So we would encourage folks to walk a little further to that lot. So if everybody's all right with it, we'll do the $2 an hour thing. All right, well, thank you. We'll move on to the last thing, the special improvement district assessment for a parking structure.
Mayor and council, this is something that we have been working on with the business community for well over a year and a half now. And what we're asking for tonight is action to approve a resolution in preliminary order to begin the process of creating an assessment of property in the downtown special improvement district for a new parking structure and mobility hub. This action is part of 3 steps that would go into creating an assessment. It is absolutely non-binding. And the purpose of it is essentially to notify the community that this work is taking place. It doesn't mean we're creating an assessment. What it means is that we're working on that in daylight with people. And so I want to be very clear about this action that we're taking tonight. It's not actually doing anything other than notifying the community that this is taking place.
So I'm sorry, I just want to inject. So today is non-binding.
Today is
And
non-binding.
let me give an example. We don't want a parking structure at any cost. So maybe what is projected today, I'm just saying hypothetically, if it were halved in the near future and more people supported it, then again, we can take a closer look after time has passed and
Right.
we are more definitive on these costs.
Correct.
Okay.
I want to, for the benefit of the public that's watching on video and here, and for council, I want to walk you through my staff report just so everybody's kind of on the same page of where we are. This is a complex and long issue that we've been kind of talking about in the community. So I just want to make sure that everybody has all the pieces of it. On November 22nd last year, City Council established a new special improvement district downtown. Those are typically called SIDs, and I'll probably refer to it as a SID. So if you hear that acronym, that's what it means, a special improvement district. And what a special improvement district is it's a collection of properties that can be assessed for a certain need within that certain geographic area. This was done following a petition of downtown property owners and business owners last fall. And the intention of that SID is to fund a downtown parking structure and mobility hub, which will provide a direct benefit to property and business owners in the area. The parking structure that is being anticipated right now will consist of 3 levels with 284 total spaces, which is a net gain of about 224 spaces. It's expected to cost about $8 million, and it's planned to be constructed in the block behind Tommyknockers, bounded by Idaho Street, Interstate 70, 14th and 15th Avenues. This project will also include coordination with a new transit station proposed by CDOT that will serve Project Pegasus, busing and intercounty transit services at I-70 exit 240. It will be accommodated with a proposed land swap and business relocation for those businesses that are located there. A little bit about Project Pegasus and busing and what's happening with that. CDOT is working to expand the reliability and desirability of mass transit throughout the I-70 region. And so what they're trying to do is create small scale transit vans, which would be 15 passenger vans, and large scale busing service that would go between Denver and Vail, offering at least hourly service to Idaho Springs, if not every half hour. That's the goal. So what that would mean is that once this is completed, a person could commute to Idaho Springs or vice versa from the metro area up to work. So I think in a lot of ways, it's a very desirable thing for our community. Because CDOT is coordinating with us on this project and helping us, they've committed $4.4 million to the project. The city is required to match those funds as we typically are for any state or federal funds. We're required to put up $4 million. The way the SID was proposed and what has been worked on to date from policy perspective is that the city would provide $2 million, which would come from city parking revenue, and $2 million from an assessment of property owners within the SID. The $2 million from city parking revenue, this is one of the reasons we created the enterprise fund, because it dedicates parking revenue to downtown improvements essentially in this parking structure. And then in the future, it could go to other downtown improvements, but it allows us to better account for that money and to track that money and to use it for a specific purpose. The city has invested a good chunk of money to date to kind of work on this parking structure project. Going back to 2012, this has been a desire of the city. In 2015, the city was relatively close to being to having an agreement to construct a parking structure, a much larger one in the parking lots of the city. That kind of fell through based on some land acquisition issues. And now we're talking about a smaller parking structure, which we designed to meet what we found in the data from the managed parking program, which was one of the goals of the program, was to see what our actual need was related. Once the SID was created, city staff worked to determine alternatives about how that SID might be equitably assessed. There is a significant consideration of due process in this situation because we don't want to tax people unfairly. And so we looked at different ways to create an assessment to do that. The first thing we did was we tried to look at what would happen if we assess properties on an average size of storefront. And they picked a number. At the time, the Economic Development Corporation was working with the property owners specifically, and they picked 22 linear feet as an average storefront just on a kind of eyeball survey of downtown. This creates a really straightforward and simple equation to build an assessment, and it meets legal requirements of such assessment from a due process standpoint. That assessment methodology be free and fair, or be fair and free of bias. But the problem is there's no average storefront size. We can't say that accurately. If you look at the assessment worksheet I provided in your packet, you'll see there's a huge variation there. So I think for that reason, that isn't the best strategy. Then looked at assessing properties by current uses, which would allow the city to tie more accurately parking impacts to the assessment rates of properties within the district. So therefore, if I have a larger business that has many employees and many customers, I would be assessed more than a small business that has not as many employees and customers. That is something that sounds really great on the surface, but when it comes to a perspective of due process, there's no quantitative way to assess parking impact by current use. So it makes it difficult to make an unbiased assessment. The other problem with that is that I may have a business right now that's say a restaurant that serves thousands of people a year, but if that restaurant were to close and it became 4 small shops, I would have no way under this arrangement to modify that so that the impact of that change would be felt at the next level, because it's basically the way a SID works. It's a one-time assessment that can be paid over time. So we can do a 20-year payment on this or whatever we want to do, but really it's a one-time amount. And so that creates an issue because you can't really change use.
Okay.
So that was one of the cons of that situation. I have been working really hard to find a way to create some sort of equity impact asset or aspect of this, but I just haven't been able to find one that's unbiased. So that's kind of been my issue. We then looked at assessing by total square footage of properties, which again would be simple and straightforward. However, there are questions as to what constitutes space to be assessed, as well as questions about building access and future changes to structures during the life of the SID. This process to calculate each building's square footage would be rather large and take a lot of time, and it also would be invasive to property owners because we'd need to have full access to their buildings and measuring and spaces that maybe were never intended to be commercial spaces and are impacting would be impacted this way. That brought us to looking at assessing the total linear footage of a property. And when we say that, we mean like the frontage. On any street, it might have frontage. The problem with that is obvious. We have properties that are a whole city block. We have properties that are on corners that have 2 frontages that are very large. And it would create a system. It is the system the city used when they created the BID, which is a business improvement district, which is very similar in the 1980s. But or the 90s, I'm sorry. It also, it could work, but it creates a large building burden for the buildings that do have multiple frontages. It also doesn't really take into effect like how big a building is, like if it has 2 stories of commercial space or whatever. So that is one of the cons for that. That brought us to what we finally showed you here today, which is assessing by address linear footage of the properties. Again, this is a simple and straightforward way to build an assessment. It meets legal requirements if the assessment methodology is fair and free of bias. It is unlikely that these frontages will ever change. They're going to be the same because our storefronts were built on certain lengths. And it doesn't really create an additional burden on properties with multiple frontages. The one thing it does is it doesn't create a system where businesses that have the highest impact on parking pay the most. And it also does not consider the difference between 1 and 2-story buildings. So there are drawbacks to that as well. But from a staff perspective, I determined that that is the most fair and equitable way that we have right now to make this assessment. And so I built a methodology based on that. And that's kind of what I talked about in my staff report. What we did is we compiled a list of every property included in the SID, and measured the address linear frontage of the property using ClearMap, which is the county's GIS system. Now, ClearMap has 2 components. It has a visual mapping component that shows the building and the layout of the street as a map. And it also shows the legal description of lots as owned by property owners within the district. When you look at that, those 2 things don't always equate in your head to what a property is, because the lot lines, being historic lot lines, don't always line up neatly with where the building ends should be. And so this is something that has come up in this process that I do need direction from council as to how we will handle that, if this is the methodology we ultimately use. If we, for instance, know a building is 36 feet and it's the lot lines, the legal lot lines for that building are 56 feet, that's a variance that we would need to talk about. And that's something that's come up. There are a couple of variances that I think are worthy of consideration to change, but I think that because we've established this methodology to keep it fair and free of bias, it should be a city council decision to do that. So I just wanted to say that. So we took the address linear frontage, which is any parcel or lot that has an address associated with it. This also created a problem because we have one building that has an address and a parcel, but there's no building. And so there's no use there at that address and parcel. It's just kind of another artifact of our really old city that just has happened over time. That's something that could be addressed as well. But I just want to mention that. But for instance, this building would be assessed on Minor Street because its frontage is 1711 Minor, or its address is 1711 Minor Street. I then measured the parcels associated with each address, which is a simple matter in ClearMap because it ties the legal description to the geographic thing, the geographic view of it. And then I put that into the spreadsheet that you have in front of you. For buildings that have parcels along different streets, this is kind of getting to the point I made. I assessed any linear frontage of an address parcel. So if there was a parcel that had an address, I measured it. And again, that's something we could change. I then created the spreadsheet and calculated the district frontage of properties in the SID. And then I took that number as the total district frontage. I subtracted frontages of city-owned property, county-owned property, special district-owned property, which includes Clear Creek School District and Clear Creek Metropolitan Recreation District, as well as the property owned by nonprofits and parcels that will likely be included in the project to build a parking structure and mobility hub. These are listed on the spreadsheet as other entities and city-owned property. Special districts and nonprofits cannot be assessed by the city. However, several have already indicated a willingness to participate in the funding of the parking structure. This would reduce the cost to all other property owners in the district. So city staff, this is something we're working on really diligently at this point. And we will want to complete this work before we have a first ordinance to read any assessment so that we'll know an actual number for the assessment.
Right, and I just want to inject that this could be critical.
Yeah, this is, in my estimation, currently we have a $2 million proposed assessment. If we were to assess all property in the district, it's about $1.2 million. Well, if you subtract the amount of the special districts and nonprofits of their frontage from the district, it's a sum of about $800,000. So that's kind of our big gap we have now. What we really tried to do with this proposed assessment of downtown properties worksheet is build something that's kind of a worst case scenario. So we have real numbers to talk about. And then we have a number of irons in the fire here to reduce this number. And that's something we're still actively working on. Carmen can weigh in this if she has a comment here, but we can work on these numbers and what we're doing here all the way through the second reading of a proposed ordinance, if that did happen. That doesn't have to happen immediately. We have some time to work on this, but Carmen, is that correct?
Hi, Mayor and Council. I would say, yes, and even beyond that. You can, Mayor and Council, John very well articulated the methodology that he has used to create what is called under the law the preliminary plan and order of this assessment. It is called a preliminary plan and order because it is just that, and that's where we are in this process. Clearly, we don't have final design, construction. We haven't let the project or constructed it. Clearly, the costs, the true costs are unknown, and they will not be for some time. And so if council, you were to adopt the resolution that, again, sort of authorizes the, and approves council's intent to construct the parking structure, and you vote to have a hearing on the preliminary plan and order, then we would proceed, as his staff report says, with the first and second reading of an ordinance that essentially authorizes the construction and the pursuit of the construction of this public project and approves, again, the preliminary plan and order. Even beyond, and so yes, those numbers can change, first reading of that ordinance and second reading of that ordinance. And then even after that, Mayor Council, after that point, when the project is let, when it's constructed, what the laws allow is that then at that point, when the true costs can, quote, reasonably ascertained, whether the project is done in whole or in part. In the future, when the true costs can reasonably be ascertained, then council, we have another hearing before you on the final assessment roll. Then you finally put the numbers in a form where they cannot be amended any further. So to piggyback on John's comments, yes, the draft numbers in the assessment roll and the preliminary plan on those numbers can change 4 more times. First reading, second reading of the order that approves the construction of the parking garage, and then 2 more times again, first reading and second reading on the final assessment roll.
So just to build on what Carmen said just a little bit, what the intention here of this document was to give what we believe is a worst case scenario for what the assessed amounts on businesses will be. I've applied for grants for this. I've applied for congressionally directed spending for this. And I have some ideas from a financial perspective that I'm still working through with parking revenue that I think could significantly impact the amounts of these assessments that they would be. Our goal right now, and I just kind of want to reiterate what our goal is right now. Our goal is to work in daylight, and we want to make sure people know that we are working on this assessment and that it is something that is happening. But that being said, we're not trying to create something that anybody is bound by at this point. In the first and second reading of this ordinance, and again, as Carmen said, as this work continues, we fully intend to do everything in our power to reduce this. I actually think, and I'll let the mayor speak to this a little bit, but I think we have enough irons in the fire right now that we can reasonably expect this number to drop significantly. There's also another component of this that I want to talk to you about. And I kind of mentioned it with this property that has an address and no building, and there's other parcels that may have been, the lot lines in the building don't necessarily line up. There is some community engagement and outreach work that needs to continue to happen to make sure that the community of property owners that exist on Minor Street are comfortable with this assessment that's happening. We need to continue to talk to stakeholders. Freeport McMorran has had conversations about participating in the parking structure with us, and that's a process too that takes a little bit of time. And again, like I said, we've asked for congressionally directed spending, which is a process the federal government can participate in this funding process with. And then also, as everyone knows, this transportation funding that the federal government has created is going to be starting to roll into communities in the near future. And that's something I think could potentially impact our costs as well. I also have an idea that we can talk to some of our stakeholders within our community that might be willing to participate in this structure. this has been something that's been proposed by the property owners, that we might be able to create a different funding source from private entities that might want to participate in the structure. And that's something that we need to explore with Carmen a little bit and figure it out. But right now, my goal is to drop, and I think it would be reasonable to look at that $800,000 that we could drop here if we can get some of these funding sources to happen. And then once that happens, once we've had these conversations, then we'll be ready to start talking about a first reading of the ordinance. It's important to note that when we do have the first reading of the ordinance, it requires 20 days notice, which actually requires a significant larger amount of work for staff because we have to have it to the newspaper and all the places we have to have it earlier than that. But that doesn't have to start, that clock doesn't start today. That clock starts when we're ready to have that conversation, once we've kind of finalized this work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything that you just said, is going counterintuitive to what I had thought. So let me clarify what I think. Is what you're saying is that everybody on this assessed list for the minor street special district for the parking structure is going to be required to pay the assessment, or can they opt out not to pay the
They
assessment?
cannot opt out. It's a district.
Okay, that was not my understanding, unfortunately. But thanks, that answers the question.
I also have a question. So you have this budgeted over a 20-year period, correct?
Can you elaborate?
So when I look at their payment structure, the payment structure is budgeted over a 20-year period. Is that what I'm getting from what you?
So that is another thing that we can talk about. Essentially, what it is in a special improvement district, it's a one-time assessment. That was one of the benefits of this district and why people preferred it when the petition happened, is because they create a one-time assessment that can be paid over a period of time. And we picked 20 years because that's traditionally the amount of time that you would pay back a loan similar to this. And if the city is engaging in other funding sources to get funding for the parking structure to fund the other infrastructure pieces here, it would align well. So what the intention would be, and I put it on here, that property owners will have the option of paying the assessment upfront via one-time lump sum payment or through annualized payments over 20 years. Annualized payments will likely have added interest not to exceed 4%. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
The reason I asked that is what happens if the property owners change?
That would run with the property. So that payment would continue.
But that seems like a detriment to somebody trying to sell their business, to say that, I'm not gonna use a bad word that starts with an LEIN, but it sounds like a lien, like a tax lien on your property going forward.
It's a assessment. It is a legal assessment.
It goes with the property
Yeah.
taxes.
Well, but it's still, considering what size business you have, it could be considered a detriment to selling your business, so that's something to think about as well.
Well, someone would have the option as a seller to pay the lien or the assessment off prior to the sale.
Sure.
The owner would have the.
That would be very generous of
So
them,
that's an option.
very generous option.
Yeah, done all the time.
Well, if you're 2 years in and you want to pay off.
People buy houses and the seller sometimes picks up the buyer's cost.
I'm just putting out there what could be the detriment to the business owners, or
Not really.
I'll let the business owners decide.
So, have you been able to do any calculations on the best guess estimate of increased sales
For the parking structure,
with the parking structure, and can that be some of that would apply to this?
so I think that some of that work has been completed, but the analysis for that, there's a lot of pieces to that. So basically, we'll have at least 224 new spaces in the parking facilities managed by the city. I think that we currently have about 130 employees at peak times of the season when we have a lot of visitation happening. And we know that several of our larger businesses are operating at like 60 to 80% capacity, and some of our smaller ones are experiencing some of those same staffing shortages. So one of the things this does is give us more employees, or the potential for more employee parking. The other thing it does is get more people in the parking facilities. We have a pretty accurate number of 2.7 people per car right now coming into the parking lots. And, of course, there's variance there, that's median. So that kind of says where we're at there. But if you think about, the average ticket at one of our larger restaurants and what that would be, I think it's fair to say for a party that size, it's probably around $100 at least, if not more, with drinks and that kind of stuff. The impact should be fairly significant in terms of stabilizing the economy and making sure that we have adequate parking in the in the downtown area. We've had several studies dating back to 2008 about the parking facilities and the congestion in the parking facilities. One thing that this does as well, and I just want to mention this, is that the tourism industry is something that the city, it's our lifeblood in a lot of ways, tourism right now and service industry. And our businesses and restaurants do a wonderful job of serving those industries and also pivoting to support local business and to support locals here in our community. But sometimes the impacts of that residential or that tourism parking on the residential areas can be significant. So I created the residential permit program for parking to create some parking safety for people who maybe don't have off-street parking really near the downtown districts, and to just kind of minimize some of those impacts. When we build this parking structure, one of the things we're going to be able to do is keep people funneled into the places they need to be for tourism reasons, so that we can appreciate their business and make sure they're valued when they're here, but also make sure that maybe they're not driving their camper up on Wall Street. You know, that'd be a good thing. So we're trying to do that as well. The other thing is that we're trying to keep general fund dollars. We're trying to walk the balance of supporting the needs of our tourism and service-based industries with the equitable delivery of service and goods to residents. And we're trying to make sure that the city has kind of got the two sides of its face there, that we're facing both directions. And I think that one of the things that was originally stated by the property owners when they petitioned the city is this helps minimize the impacts on residents for building this parking structure, and maybe helps kind of keeps promoting residential life in our community and still promoting what our downtown businesses need to continue to be sustainable in the future.
John, do you know how many businesses are for and how many are against? I mean, are we running on a majority here? Because I do believe that is the way that things get done. So can you tell me?
We've made,
I think Sadie, is she kind of in charge of like the putting this
Sadie has
together?
been the spokesperson for the ISMA, and the ISMA has been helping to coordinate. Originally, the Economic Development Corporation was working on this too with the property owners, and they've been working with Downtown Colorado Inc., which is a group that works on downtowns in Colorado, essentially.
Mhm.
And so after the city was created, city staff began working on it more. And so I've been helping with this process too. But what we need to do is we need to make sure before there's any kind of second reading of an ordinance that majority is there. And I think one of the things that is fair to say is that if we don't get this right, people aren't going to support it. Now, there's been talk about a vote, about how the property owners might vote on this. It is not required by statute that property owners vote for this. We have been trying to make sure that there's a good, strong majority for council, because nobody wants to put you in a position to make a decision that's not supported by the community. And we have work to do on that to make sure that people are comfortable with what we're doing and that it's working. I think that the majority of property owners is dependent upon that work. So what I'll tell you is when we had the petition, if you went through the addresses on the petition, and one thing to note, if you go back to look at that, originally there was a petition of property owners, and there's a page of that. And then that decision, the property owners in general felt that hadn't been broadcast widely enough to all of the property owners. So they redid the petition. Both petitions are included in the packet from November 22nd. The second petition that has more names on it is the one of people saying, hey, we are willing to consider this with the city, and we can make, we're willing to talk this through and have this process with you. So that list, we do have linear footage, a majority of linear footage in the district supporting it, which is the most fair way to do it because people own separate properties and some people own very large ones. So that's how we did that. I would like to bring the largest majority to council possible when I do this, and I want to make sure that we get this work completed, which is why I'm not prepared to say we should have this ordinance reading in 20 days. I think we need to finish what we're doing first and make sure we present to them what they can.
You're kind of saying that you want the information to get out there more clear,
Right.
So that you have a better buy-in.
I don't want them to put their hand in a black box and get bit by a snake. I want there to be a puppy in there. So.
Hey, John.
Hold on.
Before we run out of time, would you just run through the next steps so people know
Yeah.
where we're going after this?
Next steps. At the regular meeting, there's consideration of the preliminary order and resolution to begin the process of determining whether an assessment of the properties within the special improvement district should be considered. This step in the process does not create the assessment again. It just signifies the intent of city council to begin the process described in this document. Right after that, we'll begin to work on finalizing the proposed assessment. This would include meeting with nonprofits and other non-taxable entities, as well as other community stakeholders to determine whether they would participate in funding the project. After that, we need to continue working with city property owners to identify and correct concerns about how assessments were created utilizing the methodology in this report, and then I will need to ask council about variance there. Finalizing the assessment amounts in the worksheet, and that'll depend on how all that conversation goes. And then we need to notify the public and property owners the first reading of the ordinance, of the date for the ordinance first reading, and that needs to occur 20 days before, at least 20 days before the actual meeting would happen.
But
And
in
then-
that next step, we're not necessarily setting the date when we do first read.
No, we're not ready for that yet.
Yeah, you want to leave that a little more
Yeah.
up in the air.
I think we're probably at the very earliest that could happen would be the end of July. But I anticipate we've got some conversations that may take a little bit longer, and I think it's more important to do it right than to go fast.
And we anticipate coming back to council with an update with this information before an ordinance is even considered.
And an update, when you say you want to come to council with a majority, you're going to come to council with an update from the business owners and some of the work that you're doing.
That would
with
be
them.
my intention to very clearly illustrate majority. And, you know, I think it's fair to say not everything works for everybody. And there's probably, you know, we're probably not going to have 100% support, but I think I can definitely, if we're able to accomplish what we've talked about with the property owners and some of the things that we have as far as irons in the fire, I have no reason to believe that we shouldn't be able to show a very strong majority for the project. It's just I'd like to complete that work before we bring that to council.
I would appreciate that.
So our actions later today would be preliminary, non-binding, and allow us time to make these dollar adjustments and perhaps some frontage adjustments.
Correct.
And, you know, because I think when I started this, I don't think anybody wants a parking structure at any cost. So this will give us time to, I mean, for me, it's gonna be the business sentiment and what the bottom line is.
Mhm.
And you know, that's why I wouldn't want to say no today because it's preliminary and non-binding. And I hope that we drive this cost, you know, down significantly and take away some of the concerns that some in the business community have.
Can we have some kind of question out to those business owners that might be concerned about the cost, that is there a cost that would work for you? I mean, because I know that some people are gonna say that any cost is too high. And I do always go with the majority. The vote of the majority is how I roll. But I wanna be also like at least accommodating or thinking about trying to help people that might feel that this is a hardship and that maybe their business won't feel the you know, extra parking spots as well as some other people. I just like to have that question out to the business owners. You don't have to
I think
answer it by any
you'll
stretch.
hear that in public comment this evening, some of that.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing to remember, and this is a hard truth that needs to be said, and I'm just saying it because it's not something you think about right away. But the reason we didn't go with business impact is because uses change.
Yes.
There are business owners in the downtown district who have expressed some concern about this, rightly so. But one of the things that happens is that there may be associated with other businesses in the same building that create a higher impact than maybe whole restaurants do in the downtown, because some of our our buildings are very large. When you consider the total impact score of a building in that way, you can see it add up quickly.
Mhm.
We need to be really careful about that piece of it. In this, I think that there may even still be room to build some of this equity in. I think one of the things that I would like to do is reach out to some of the businesses that are perceived to have a higher impact and see if they'd be willing to participate in a different way in the structure, in a way that would reduce the cost for other people, but that's something that we need to talk about. Sure. I've had some ideas about how we might incentivize that and make it so that it's a good deal for everyone and maybe even get some benefit for the community out of that as well. But again, this is a conversation we need to have. And I think the key is that we need to remember what you just said, that there's people in our downtown district who are property owners who purchased their property before it became expensive, before, you know, Idaho Springs was Idaho Springs, when it was more, before everything happens. And while they have beautiful buildings and they have amazing uses, right now we need to be very aware of where we're at. I think there's also people we'll see who are just diametrically opposed to assessments in general. And I think we'll see people who have other varying kinds of questions. And all of those things are important. And I think that one of the things that one of the things I personally have tried to do in this is talk to people and just be upfront and honest about what we're trying to accomplish and listen and try to build these things in as much as possible. Carmen's been a great help because one of the things that is really important here is that it's unbiased and equitable and that there's due process in this whole thing. So I have come up with some cockamamie schemes just like get that to happen. They just don't always work. And so if I can find a legal structure to do that, I will. But I think this voluntary participation might be the best possible way to begin that conversation.
Well, ideally, everybody would be on board.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, that would be the case.
What is your timeline as far as because my concern is we have, Carmen said we have 4 opportunities to change the numbers. What is your timeline looking like for knowing when we're gonna have grants or the congressional spending, or like, what does that look like so that it can impact this?
Congressional spending will probably be next year if we ask again, because you kind of have to go through their system. And so we asked this year, but it wasn't quite developed the way it needed to be. We have a grant outstanding to Freeport for this project that could be a significant amount of money, or maybe not as significant. They're kind of working through that right now. And then we need to have conversations with the stakeholders and just talk about how they may participate and what may happen. For instance, a big question, what happens if Carlson sells and becomes private commercial development? That's really important because of the amount of frontage they have in that district. And I think the impact of any use there would be fairly significant. So these conversations need to occur. We need to talk about, there's some loose ends that we need to talk about. One thing is residential living units downtown and how we talk about parking for those folks, because that is as you all know, that's a big concern for some people. And rightly so, because you need to be able to park your car. I think we have some ways that we might work through that. That would be fair and equitable for everyone. So I think what I'm trying to say is that the really critical thing right now is that we have these conversations in daylight. And that's why I wanted to bring this to you tonight. We also really need to make sure that that's really it. We need to have these conversations in daylight. We need to make sure everybody's aware that this is the direction we're working and that we're still working, that we're not done, but we have, I remember what I was gonna say, the IGA with CDOT. Once we sign an IGA with CDOT, we can start spending their money instead of city money, which will move us through the engineering process a little bit quicker. That's really the thing that we need to accomplish at some point. It would be great if we could do that by the end of the summer. But again, there's some process that needs to happen here to make sure that they're comfortable and everybody's in good place.
All right, anything more on this? I'm gonna give everybody about 5 minutes for a comfort break. We'll adjourn here at 6:58 and we'll come back here in about 5 minutes and start a regular session. Thank you.
Carmen? Can I call you for a second and ask you simple questions? Are you eligible to be in where you headed? Right. Yeah, so
I know, sorry about that. Not
I'll find out.
I'm not aware of anything. Yeah.
I always thought it.
Right.
Oh, okay. Oh, no problem. Valley. When did you were chairs?
I went to the bathroom, I came out, it was not.
I think I'm gonna have to get a school system. I mean, You know, just got the AC outside.
You guys should.
I don't think we should have. Summer.
Maybe another row.
You know, I've seen some of those.
Yes.
I'll try to trip over my careful. I swear. I've had
Whenever you decide.
I don't know, Chief, I think it's gonna be close.
We just start that process by notifying people.
No, I'm up there.
We're gonna, I just, you gotta make that. I had no
Anytime you want to leave in the
I will make sure you will.
I would like to extend a welcome to everybody. It is so nice to see so many folks in the audience tonight. But welcome to the June 13th, 2022 Idaho Springs regular city council meeting. And we're going to call it to order at 7:05. And first thing on the agenda is roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here.
Lisa Manifold.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Kate Collier. Here. John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacabilly.
Here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. All right, we have an agenda before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda for June 13, 2022.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, our first and a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Does anyone tonight feel they have a conflict of interest?
Yeah, I would like to exclude myself from resolution 11, series 2022.
All right. All right, Scott. You'll be excluded from resolution 11, series 2022. We have the minutes before us. Do I have a motion? And by the way, this will actually end up being two motions.
I'll move to approve the minutes from regular meeting, May 23rd, 2022, and move to approve the minutes from special meeting on May 31st, 2022.
Do I have a second on the first motion?
I'll second.
And do I have a motion on the motion for the May 31st?
I'll second.
All right, Art seconded on the second, and any discussion?
I wasn't May 31st meeting.
You were not at the May 31st meeting? Okay.
Okay, even though it's on here.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you for that correction.
That,
John.
so I'll just say no.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, all those in favor of accepting or approving the minutes from the regular meeting on May 23rd, 2022, please signify by raising your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And I also would ask for a vote for the minutes for the special meeting on May 31st, 2022. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstain. All right, thank you. Moving on to approval of the bills. We have them before us. Could I have a motion on that bill, please?
Move to approve bills to June 13th, 2022.
All right, thank you, John. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
First and a second, any discussion? Or questions? I would like to make a comment. There is a bill on here for Doyle disposal that probably ought to be at least 2.5 times that. And I just want to say that was because of the generosity of discounting the 2 roll-offs that we had at Cooper Riley Park for the city cleanup, which went very well. So I wanted to include that. Thank you. Any further discussion? A roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you. I would like to move on to public comments. We'll start off with Cameron Marlin from Clerk Creek Metropolitan Rec District. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
I can. Cameron Marlin, 269 Zip Trail, Idaho Springs, Colorado.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. For 3 minutes.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Cameron Marlin, and I'm the general manager of Ccmrv. I'm extremely excited to be here tonight to address the council in specific regards to the Idaho Springs County Park project. Thank you for the opportunity. As you may or may not know, Ccmrv has been in conversation with the city of Idaho Springs about a skate park for decades. I'm here tonight to draw your attention to the efforts of the skateboard. We're an all-volunteer committee that I am a member of. The skateboard formed in September 2021 and is composed of over 40 locals, many of which are in this room and many of which are high school students. It was a group of students from the skateboard who presented to the Board of Education last fall about the need for a skate park. The Board of Education then authorized school district staff to pursue investigation into the possibility of incorporating a skate park into the Building 103 property. That's the former high school. A result of the bond measure, Building 103 will be the future home of Carlson Elementary. In an effort to advance this pursuit and to hold space for ideas and concerns around the skate park, the skateboard hosted a community roundtable meeting in March. Many of you were there, including Mayor Harmon. Thank you so much for showing your support. The roundtable meeting was a huge success and it helped us all to better conceptualize the impact that a world-class skate park would have on our town and the people who live here. The young people of this community deserve leadership that's willing to not only listen, but also to back up words of support with action. The pandemic illustrated many tough realities, one of the most perilous being the mental health of our young people. A skate park would simultaneously support the mental health and the physical health of everyone in this community. While the school district's architectural teams are working to develop a site plan, there are fair and reasonable realities that threaten the success of the skate park. One of them is space. The programming needs of an elementary school and the requirements of any building, such as parking and fire access, naturally will take priority. But as those needs take shape, the available space for a skate park diminishes. In addition, student safety also takes priority, and at this time, it's unclear whether the skate park would be able to remain open during school session or not. Unfortunately, the destination skate park that we're striving for, one that skateboarding enthusiasts from far and wide would travel to come and visit, are at odds with these realities. As a member of the skateboard, we get it and we understand, but we also don't want to miss an opportunity for achieving the vision for a skate park that this community deserves, and one that we've been working on and waiting for all of these years. There are other options for a skate park in Idaho Springs. I'm here tonight and I'm joined by several members of the skateboard. Thank you guys all for being here and for wearing your shirts. We're here to ask for your support and your commitment for this long-awaited dream to become a reality once and for all. Idaho Springs needs a skate park. Our teens need to feel welcomed in their own town. I'm here to emphasize the fact that this is something that has come before council many times in the past. Your predecessors have voiced support for a skate park, but this is your opportunity to do what they could not do, which is to back up the cemented sentiment of this community with action, once and for all. Thank you for your time.
Cameron, thank you. And I really appreciate all of the support there in the audience. That's very nice to see. We had 2 letters written regarding the special improvement district. One was included in the packet. The other one was too late to be included in the packet, but it has been distributed to every member of council and myself. Very well worded, very well thought letters. Charles Follen with the Wild Bunch, you're next up. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Chuck Cohen, 1435 Chicago Creek Road, Base 10, Idaho Springs.
Can you please raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay.
Mike Keeler. 64 Road. Hi, my name is Chuck Cohen. Oh, I'm sorry.
You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chuck Bullen. I'm with the Wild Bunch. We have 6 members, 5 men, 1 woman. The youngest is 57. We have 3 that are in their early to middle 60s. This one, 69.
Early.
And another one, 74. And everything that we have, we buy our own. We take no donations or anything from that. And we're here to ask for permission to do shows on Minor Street. Last year, we performed 28 shows over 7 Saturdays with a perfect safety record. We adhered to all the rules from the Minor Street Association. Basically, we dealt with Sadie from the tea shop. And she told us where we would do stuff and how to rope it off and everything. Performing on Minor Street has unique difficulties. Example, all the pets people bring and numerous young children. So before any show, we would walk the whole street and make sure that they were well aware that we were going to be making noise and create havoc. And we are always available for pictures. We take numerous pictures every day we do shows, and a lot of them end up on social media. And, you know, we hope that it gives a lot more recognition to Idaho Springs and also Minor Street. And many people have told us that they were leaving, but they're gonna extend their stay so they can watch our next show. So hopefully they go shopping, eating or something and provide for the business. Now, I understand they're gonna have a reenactment jail, maybe on Minor Street, and we'll do our best to support that. Many people around town have been asking, when are we gonna do it, you know? I told them we're gonna come here and talk to y'all. And our weapons are reenactor copies made in Italy. They cannot fire real bullets, only blanks, and the barrels are sealed. So nothing can come out the end of the barrel. We have 2 insurance policies, both for $2 million each. We perform shows in Gilpin County and Clear Creek and Jefferson County. And we also perform in Council Grove and Wichita, Kansas. And we love Idaho Springs. Oh, and all our monies we receive are donated right now to the Gilpin County Historical Society. We keep nothing for ourselves, but we are open to suggestions for other charities. And we love Idaho Springs and hope we are helping the Minor Street business by performing our shows. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Can I say something?
Family oriented too. We do a lot of comedy. And something that Chuck is very good at anyway. But so it's being family friendly. A lot of the kids come down there. We even have a kids show during our shows. So I just wanted to make that in.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you. So there are several folks who signed up tonight. And first off, I would like to welcome Jerry Furberg. Please come up.
Hello.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Jerry Ferber, 1447 Minor Street.
Can you please raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. It's a complicated issue, but you know, I'm here to talk about the SID and the assessments. And a lot of the things that I heard in the work session actually did answer and give me some direction, and knowing that, you know, where we are at this point, there are so many unknowns that, you know, the statement of this being preliminary and non-binding is quite important. I did have a couple of comments that I had jotted down, and thinking about this, most of this was answered today, but I do want to remind Council, or at least to tell Council, that, you know, part of the impetus in signing the original petition was that, you know, final decision, or a good part of the final decision, is going to revert back to the stakeholders as a final vote. You know, from a legality point of view, I'm not sure how that works out, or within the structure of the SID, I'm also not sure how that works out. But once again, the impetus to put my signature to that petition was that fact in itself. So we had a little bit more control over the assessment. To your point about liens that you made during work session, you know, I think it's really quite valid, as your, you know, counterpoint was that, you know, this thing could be taken care of on a sale. However, if there was a structure where one of the property owners wanted to refinance, you know, all of a sudden you're sitting there with a lien on your property, and that could cause some issues. So I think the lien part of this, and what our, you know, legalities are as far as, you know, the actual, you know, lot numbers and the finance of these lots is concerned, is something certainly to be addressed and to be thought of. I also would like to remind Council that, you know, not all the businesses, I've heard it referred to during the work session, you know, the businesses and property owners, you know, can be two different things. So, you know, you have some business owners that can look at the extra business and know they're going to have a great weekend. You know, property owners that are essentially landlords, their Saturdays don't change. So it winds up, you know, basically being the same. So, you know, having a happy tenant is certainly a good thing. Part of my fear also at this point is, we just hit a bear market. So, our financial concerns and making financial commitments and is a little daunting at this point, at least from my point of view. So, those are some of the considerations. I would like to be assured that, as this marches forward, I think Jonathan's done really, really a good job under the scenario, and I'm comfortable with the fact that he's really, trying to squeeze the onion as far as, any of the monies that we might be able to get to help defer some of the costs of the property owners. And with that in mind, most of my comments here are preliminary and not binding, as were some of the comments that were made today. So as we go forward, we'll see how it shakes out, and I appreciate you taking into consideration some of these particular concerns, of which there are many, and mainly because there are many, many unknowns to be dealt with at this point. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jerry, thank you very much. Just one qualifier, folks who have signed up, perhaps if their question has been answered by others, or they just don't feel like it. You don't have to speak, but I want to make sure we give everybody the opportunity. And next up, Bruce, please come on up.
Hey, Mayor, can I add something while we're
Yes.
waiting? Just to be clear, also, this is just public comment and not a public hearing, so we do not have to swear people in.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Bruce probably appreciates that.
My name is Bruce. You guys all know me. I run the pizza shop across the street. Also, when it comes to the SID, I have a couple little comments, but when it comes to the SID, in the beginning, when I put my name, on the petition, that was not because I was all for everything. That's because I wanted to be in the loop and help represent the community. And for what John is doing, I'm very thankful. He's finding some money. All I'm asking is John find some more money because, or some incentives or whatnot. Because like I had said before at our meeting, I don't mind loaning you all money towards the parking garage. I know we need parking, but we should have took the football field instead. We could have much more parking for much less money. So just don't misappropriate no funds. Let's figure it out. But John, please find more money. And as far as the skate park goes, we had a skate park. It was torn down. It was a damn shame. No one was really made aware of it until it happened. I'm not going to say any names, but someone that might have used to have been on this council really did this town dirty, plain and simple. Guys you've taken the basketball courts away, you've taken the tennis courts away, taken the skate park away. You haven't left much for the kids besides alcohol and drugs, which fortunately that's prevalent as hell here. But these kids, you got to give them something to do or else they're going to get in trouble, plain and simple. I was not always a great community member. I was one of those kids. And I'm going to tell you what, when they get bored, they're going to screw stuff up. They're going to screw their lives up. And that's not what we need. We need to work with them, give them something to do, and make them want to stay here in Idaho Springs and be the next generation to run this place and be proud to be here and say, hey, that's where I grew up. I'm helping fix the place, whatever it takes. But let's do something for them. Because we've done nothing but screw them lately. And these guys, let them perform. It's good stuff. I've seen it.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Idaho Springs. This is where they struck gold in Colorado. If we can't get on board with the history of the Old West history, the gold rush history of Idaho Springs, then what the hell are we doing? We actually have a very rich history here. And if the town played to it, you'd make a lot more money than all the stupid other stuff that we're doing, plain and simple. I mean, this town has a lot to offer to the whole world. I mean, as far as the train goes, I say put a track around the whole damn town and make some money on it. That's just me, you know? But yeah, how about a skate park? Let's do it. Let's figure out where it's going. I mean, in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, I helped raise $2.4 million and helped design Peach Park, a concrete skateboard park in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, owned by the county. And it is a phenomenal park. Look it up. I mean, and we did that. I think it took a year and a half for the whole thing to raise the money, have it designed, if we build it, it's done. People have been skating on it ever since. My kids have somewhere to go. So if you need a hand, just ask.
Larry, welcome. Please come up.
Thank you.
You don't have to.
I need one because I get sauce all over.
I wanted to talk about this a little bit also, and I did sign the petition because I'm not totally opposed to that garage. And I do believe the city needs help with parking and stuff there. But I do have a little issue with the petition, and just a small portion of that is the signature that said, I own a garage. That garage that they signed for, I believe, sits in the middle of where the new garage will be. So that person signed that petition, and they will never be taxed. They signed that petition to say, place a tax on their building. The city's gonna buy that garage from them. And the other part of that is the two addresses on one building. I have a 22 square foot or lineal foot building, and another guy has a 22 lineal foot building. He signed twice for that building. It has two addresses, mine doesn't. But when I asked him why you signed twice for it, he told me because they told me to. So that kind of bothers me. And then the next thing about it is, who's gonna lend me the money if I don't have $20,000 to throw on the table and give you guys? Is it the city that's lending me the money? The city that's gonna charge me 4% interest? And if you do have that money to lend me right now, why don't you just build the thing? You know, if you've got that money. And then there's another thing that I learned today. I think if I understood your city lawyer correctly when she was speaking, she said you can go in, build that thing, and then say, this is what the end assessment is. So if that garage is $15 million instead of 8, like you guys are stating, then I could be paying $2,000 at least a year more in taxes on there. So you need to have an upfront cost price and stuff like that. But that's pretty much most of my concerns here. And I do want to say, I can't top Bruce because he's more alert than me, but I do want to say it was cool when the SWAT team surrounded you guys last year.
That was a long story.
Yeah.
All right, Larry, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Tamer is up next. Welcome.
Mayor, City Council, Chief, and all you beautiful people of Idaho Springs and Gilpin. My name is Tamara and I am with Project Support Senior Center. I'm the director, and we are here to support the skate center. We are here to support the Wild Bunch. I know from being a parent, from coming from Netherlands, that a skate park is essential to helping enrich the lives of these children, giving them different options to have better choices to make. If we don't allow them to make these choices, they're going to go with the tourists that come into town and offer all kinds of bad things. Secondly, I want to really support and let you guys know we're here to support the Wild Bunch. I personally have known the Wild Bunch for over a decade. I'm from Gilpin County. I have seen their shows. I know that they provide a lot of history, a lot of engagement. They definitely attract a lot of people. So if people are leaving the street and these guys start, this enactment is educational. So it draws in a lot of people. So Project Support just wants you to know that we're here to support not only the skate park, but the Wild West. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Tamara, thank you very much. Mike Keeler, come on up and welcome. Is there a Mike, am I pronouncing his last name right, Keeler?
He's, I don't think he's here.
Oh,
He was part of the. is he- he's one of the other- yeah.
yes, it does say wildlife. All right, Sharon, please come up. Also, talk about the wildlife.
She's with us, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I just want to give
We thought
everybody.
everybody needed to sign in.
Gotcha. I didn't know. No. Chuck Follen, you've already spoke. And Karen Quambeck, please come up. And welcome.
Like I should bring a skateboard. I won't ride this, you guys. I have a prop.
You could try for it.
You ready?
Oh, yes, please.
I was all prepared to sign in.
I know,
or
me too.
sworn in. I'm Karen Quambeck. I'm the superintendent of the school district. And I first want to thank all of you for everything that you have done already and you're currently doing to support the youth in Clear Creek. I could probably shorten what I was going to say and just say ditto to what's been said tonight already. And everything Cameron said, I already have it written down. I think we've got like minds, but I will shine a light on just a few things. As a school district, we wholeheartedly support this student-driven project around creating, designing and building and having a skate park for our kids. And a lot of the things that have been said already tonight, again, I just want to emphasize, it's not just about the physical exercise. This is about the mental health of our kids. And I will remind everyone as we're coming out of the pandemic, we have a mental health crisis amongst our youth, especially amongst our teens. And so this would provide, again, not only the recreational opportunities, it also provides that sense of hope and a sense of we believe in our kids. As a school district, we are very interested in making sure it happens. We'd love to have it next to the elementary school. As Cameron mentioned, we've discovered already that there may be more constraints and our timeline might not be as friendly towards the project, but that is still an option on the table. Wherever the skate park goes, we wholeheartedly support it. And I have learned so much through the process, attending the roundtables, learning along with the skateboard, capital S, capital B. And as a mom and as an educator and as a district leader, I think this is an incredible opportunity that we shouldn't say no to. It's about community, it's about collaboration, it's about providing access for all of our kids. And I think that's a huge point. And more than anything, as you know, we live in this amazing place. Let's get our kids outside and our adults. That's all. Thank you.
Karen, thank you very much.
You know, it's like kids.
Kristen Slaymaker, welcome. That was awesome. Thank you. Wow.
So I'm Chris Slaymaker, and as you can tell, I think this was actually important enough. I signed my entire name on the document because my whole name is Kristen, in case it's curious. And I have been, I joined up officially on the skateboard in January, I think is when I showed up. But I am just here to remind you that we need a skate park. It's obvious, we need it. But remember that those who use the skate park, it is a lot more than skateboard. I actually did for one of my pairs of skates. I am a lifelong skater of some sport. I need let you know, I already go to Golden, drag my little one out to Ulysses Park, and she rides a balance bike up and down that thing. I have gone to the skate park in Lyons. I'm on my roller skates, and I have watched groups of River. Can you raise your hand for a second? Do you feel brave? I have. Thank you, River. I have watched groups of kids River's age sliding up and down on the skate park and having so much fun on all the elements. They don't even have skates on. Skate parks, if you go watch any skate park, they're family friendly. Watch the kids on scooters. Watch the 40, the 50, the 60-year-old skateboarders tearing it up in a bowl. And it is fantastic. So I want you all to remember that skate parks include people of all ages, sizes, abilities, disciplines on wheels, and even, you know what, good old sit on your butt and have a great slide down a ramp. And I just want everybody to remember that. I can also say when I'm wearing my business founder hat, is that I am a person myself, I drag my skates places, I hit skate parks up through. Yes, now I can say I've hit skate parks in 3 or 4 different states while traveling, so there is that incentive as a tourist, there is that reason. And I can also say as a parent, I want to be able to take my kid to the skate park in my town. I don't want to have to go through the extra effort of driving on I-70 to get to a skate park. I don't want to do any interstate driving that I do not have to do. And you know, that's probably more dangerous as being in that car than falling on your butt because you landed wrong. It's just letting people know that. So think about it. We need a skate park. I think we have 2 excellent opportunities. The ballpark seems like it's probably the stronger contender. So let's make this happen. Let's make it happen as fast as we can. And let's bring some other amenities in it to really be the spot that this community needs. Thank you.
Chris, thank you very much. Samantha, you're our last speaker tonight. Please come up and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Samantha Dunn, and I'm the Director of Programming and Communications for the CCMRV. So first of all, I'm just going to keep it short. Everyone else has said it. I would love to see a skate park in our county, in our town. I'm a parent of a child who would definitely benefit from having that as an amenity, and I'd love to not be driving down to Bowling every single week. So ditto to what everyone else said. I'll leave that there. My official reasoning of being here is I've been working with staff on our special event permits for the events that we host in the baseball fields. And we've made a lot of progress on it, and I'm feeling pretty good where we're at. But the main ask I'd like to bring to you tonight is that we would like to request that the special event permit fees be discounted to $25 per event. I'm asking this because the $25 is what will cover the liquor license fee that the city has to pay to the state of Colorado. So we often host events at the field where we don't have to do any permitting for the city because we don't require a liquor license. And so a lot of the work for all of our events, even if they have a liquor license, it's pretty minimal what we bring to the city council or to city. So, so that's my ask. If you'll consider waiving the fee to $25 per special event that requires a liquor license. Thank you.
Samantha, thank you very much. And before we move on, we had many speakers tonight and a few different subjects, and regardless of what your subject was, I just want to say it takes something to stand up in front of folks and speak on these matters, and can't thank you enough for coming out and giving us part of your night. So thank you very much to all of you. Next, well, I'd like to move on to resolutions. And first up is resolution number 10, series 2022. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 10, series 2022, a resolution approving the water supply agreement between the city and Congregation Emmanuel.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
First and a second discussion? Oh, yes, John.
John, you okay with this? Yes, they've had it for a number of years.
Okay. All right.
I have one other question.
Yes.
And this is nothing different because they started out the 5-year lease. This is a habitual standard ones, standard lease we have with them.
That, yes, I believe so.
Okay.
It's essentially renewing the lease that we've had with them for a long time with slightly adjusted terms, updated terms based on the current environment.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Dick Collier.
Yes.
Don Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to move on to resolution number 11, series 2022. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve resolution 11, series 2022, a resolution declaring an intent to construct a parking structure at 15th Avenue and Idaho Street and approving a preliminary plan and order to construct the same and to finance a portion of its cost through assessment of historic downtown parking, transportation, and mobility special improvement district.
All right, thank you. And do I have a second? Well, I will second. Discussion, please.
I just want to make sure that when we go forward with this, that we really are doing whatever we can to reduce the amounts. And I know, John, you did actually point out that we didn't get to like, do we have a majority of people supporting it? That would always change my mind as to whatever's going on. I just don't want to shove anything down anybody's throat or make it impossible for anybody to use their property in another way. So I just need that to be out there. My intent is to say yes on this, but that does not make that the rest of my votes are going to be yes. I want to see how this unfolds. So.
Kate, you and I just want you to know, I have also stressed this is not at any cost kind of a thing.
Yeah, I know. And you know, I just want everybody to know what that means.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm not shoving this down your throat.
Right.
But today I would say, you know, I would have a more open view on this particular vote.
Good.
I'm okay with it because it's preliminary and non-binding, like I want to see what we can do. One of my
Right.
concerns is that, you know, we talk about the congressional funding, if that's something we get and we have the SID in place before the end of 2022, what happens in 2023 when we get this extra money, but we've already assessed that the SID is binding? Like, do we go back in and change the SID? Are we able to do that? And I don't know.
Carmen, that's the question right there, right?
Am I able to?
Jonathan, please, we have something that would help.
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, I should have said this in the work session, but it is the intention of city staff to put a trigger in the SID assessment to take care of that. So the SID assessment as stands would be $2 million. We would trigger it so that it would not occur until the funding for the parking structure was complete and everything was in line where it needed to be. The other thing to note is that the commitment is that $2 million is the assessment worst case scenario, and we're working to the other end of the spectrum. There would be another process similar to what we've gone through for the last year if we were talking about increasing the SID assessment. So what we're trying to do is just give worst case scenario and then work down.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right, John, please.
Yeah. Is there any other grants like, oh gosh, I can't remember, there's several, you know, downtown improvement grants, stuff like that we can look at?
Yes, sir, there is. We've applied for one from CDOT. The part of the issue is a lot of that money funnels through CDOT and they're already committing to the project. So while infrastructure project money is available for this, it's a little bit of a lift to get everything lined up the right way. But we have a number of irons in the fire right now that could take care of what you're saying. And well, not I, but staff is working on these. So hopefully come up with a pretty good sized chunk of funds.
What about the federal infrastructure money?
We are hearing that should start trickling down pretty soon and hearing about how we can use it. That's been kind of the thing, is just figuring out how we apply for those funds and where exactly they're going to sit. So we are maintaining that and watching that. I'll be attending a session at CML next week, which is the Colorado Municipal League Conference, about how those funds are going to be given out. And so hopefully we'll have a little bit more information next week on some of that bigger money.
So there's some potential reducing costs.
I am fairly confident that we are going to reduce that cost rather significantly.
John, you know, I would also add the $1.9 trillion federal infrastructure bill. Actually, the money will be expended over the next 4 years. I read the condensed version, which is 45 pages. And several times they talk about funding, and this is their words, not mine. Regional transportation hubs is one of the goals. We've been calling that this parking structure regional transportation hub for many years. Maybe it's just by luck, but we have been using the right verbiage. And I know that one of the Fed's goals of this infrastructure bill is to come forward with money. Is just, I think, some of this comes out in different tranches, different times, and we may just be ahead of the curve on when this is doled out. Yes, John.
I was going to mention the other thing is the urgency for why this SID is important is because we need to match the CDOT funds so we can begin using their money for engineering and NEPA process and all those things. So creating the SID assessment, what it really does is it allows us to match CDOT. Some of the other infrastructure pieces of this bigger project aren't going to be relevant for the SID. The SID's not funding infrastructure improvements. They're just helping to fund the parking structure, which will help benefit them. They're not even really funding the mobility hub aspects of this. We're just trying to get to the point where we can match CDOT and use that funding source. and then start developing the project to the engineering.
Anything further?
Yeah, I have a question. In this letter from Jack Sello Whiskey.
Yes.
And I don't want to address any accusations he makes in it, but my question is, he refers to Green Mountain Falls. And he refers to revenues that did not come in as projected. And your name is mentioned in there, John, as you were maybe part of it, as part of the program. Can you kind of clarify what he's talking about revenues that did not come in and what the difference of that funding was to what our funding may be?
Green Mountain Falls is approximately a quarter the size of our community. And they assaulted the parking ambassadors on the first day of operations and stole all the equipment from the city.
Wow.
And assaulted the people several times. And so they had to heavily modify the program in a way that made it non-functional, is what happened.
Who's up?
Community members assaulted what we call our parking ambassadors.
Right.
And then they stole the parking kiosk. So they ended up having some and threw it in the lake, which is unfortunate, but that's what happened. It's not that the revenues didn't match. Their revenue modeling was actually really good, and they don't have any, compared to us, they have $0. And so this would have stabilized their revenue for the next 10 years based on the revenue projections just from the first month of operation, but they had to heavily modify the program just for safety reasons.
For a town that small, I mean, if you needed a parking.
They have several really popular hiking trails. One's called Catamount, and then there's the Green Mountain Falls, which are very popular. And one of the issues their town has is their town hall burned down. It was an arson attack on the town. They don't know where the lot lines for any private property is, and so they have some significant issues down there that they're trying to work through.
I guess. When we're talking about the cost of this garage and everything, are we taking into consideration like the security system, things like that? That's going to be included in the cost. That might have to be quite an elaborate system.
Yes, sir.
Aware of that.
Yes, sir. And there is a 35% contingency on this project currently, but it's envisioned as a full turnkey project with the security and also some of the modern parking tools they have to show where parking is available and all that kind of thing.
Okay. Agree with that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you. That was news to me. I had never heard that situation. Wow. Any further discussion?
How do we know how much the estimated cost is? Do we send it out to anybody or?
That's based on, so JDA has looked at this project and also Walker Consultants, which is a parking, they do engineering on parking structures. This has been, with inflation and everything, it's been something that has been important to track. HDR, who've done a lot of work with in the past, they have been managing the engineering side of this project for us. And the person who's been doing this work is very familiar with Idaho Springs and what it takes to get construction happening here. And these are based on his best estimates. I've also been working with Troy Brenberg, who's been to city council before, and he works for Downtown Colorado Inc. and is a finance person. And we've been working on pro forma based on parking revenue and how this would look all put together. So those guys are both, those teams are working to make sure that these are adequate. And as the mayor said, the intention is not parking garage at any cost. We're trying to get just a good peg for it right now.
What consultant company are you working with?
Walker Consultants.
They're very good. They're very good.
And so your time, I just want to revisit this. Your timeline is looking like towards the end of the summer to try to get this SID in place?
Maybe.
Or later, a little bit later?
The community engagement piece needs to be correct. And so we are building that into this process. Ideally, if everything was where we need it to be, we could enter into our IGA, which is intergovernmental agreement, which is a legally binding agreement with CDOT, so that we can start using their funds to complete the engineering work and the NEPA, which is environmental review process and historic review process that needs to happen for that property. And the sooner we're able to enter that IGA, the better, because that's just better for the residents of the city to be able to spend CDOT money than city money. But like I said, I think that the earliest that could possibly happen would be end of July to start that ordinance reading. And then potentially if it needs to go a little bit longer, but we can get that majority, I think that's what our preference would be.
I'd like to have as much of a majority as possible.
One more than yes than no.
Yeah, but I'd like to have,
One more there.
I'd like to have like 5 more, so that,
It's safety net.
well, safety net, but also so that people are happier with it. We don't have, folks that are unhappy and disgruntled with the way that we have, the direction that we've gone.
Yeah, and for me, I think this is really gonna come down to bottom line, and what is this gonna, ultimately cost? That'll help people make a decision, exactly.
Well, yeah, because I'm with Kate on, this is now a lien on the property and, I can't remember his name. Jerry brought up that this, what happens when you refinance? That's an extra piece that has to be looked at if you want to refinance.
And I do also believe there's something to be said for, say, a dentist office, having 224 more parking spaces. Probably won't get you one more person in the door.
Right.
However, and this is my however, and why it really does come down to cost, I might be excited about owning that dentist office building with 224 more parking spaces.
You could do a different business, yeah.
I think that my property value would probably benefit.
Sure, I think that's absolutely gonna happen for businesses.
So
if they have that option.
I kind of look at that, and again, it comes down to cost, but Jonathan, yes.
To say, one thing to note also about one of the impetuses for that petition, downtown property owners have not paid for parking resources in Idaho Springs ever.
Oh, yeah.
And Kate, as you know, from planning commission, we have a huge problem with change of use on properties because you have to provide for parking. What this does for us is create a system where we might be able to very carefully and cogently change our parking requirements so we can have changes in use downtown. There's 15 units at least of housing that could be affordable housing we could open right now if we could deal with the parking requirements.
I would like to see that done before the parking garage is in place, because I think it's a great use of those.
It is.
Yeah.
I think this gives the businesses a little bit of skin in the game to, promote their businesses and also help the community. And if we can make it so that the level of assessment is reasonable for everyone, I think it's a win-win for everybody in the long term.
Good point.
I've had 3 or 4 people just don't want an ugly structure built. 2 of them are anti everything, so take that from there, yeah.
They can make them better looking. I mean, it's gonna be a parking garage, right? It's gonna still be a parking garage, but I think
But it
there's
can fit
options.
in, it can fit in with the
Yeah.
architecture and the look.
And the thing is on that side of the road, you could maybe make a mural or something that's like kind of, or even make it look like woods. I don't really care what you make it look like, but
It will
there's
not
some
exceed
sense.
the height of Tommyknockers either, so we're not blocking view shed
Oh, okay.
in any dramatic
Yeah.
way. There are renderings in the downtown master plan, if you've seen that, but they're just initial renderings and we want it to match the character, but not, create fake history at the same time.
Right. No
Anything,
recommendation.
anything further? All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Abstain.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'd like to move on to ordinance second reading, starting with ordinance number 4, series 2022.
Mayor
do I have-
Harmon.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad I caught you. Staff would like to request of council a motion to table this ordinance until such time as staff can obtain a legal description for the vacation area. So
Okay.
if motion to table would be fine. I would ask to continue to a date certain, but we do not need to do that. This is not a public hearing or the type of ordinance that has special notice requirements. So a motion to table this is just great.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to table ordinance number 4, series 2022, until such time that staff has a satisfactory legal. Do I have a second? And a second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, thank you. City Attorney is up next. Do you have anything for us, Carmen, or would you be waiting for the executive session?
Generally, I don't have anything for you, but I will just add, in case interested parties are watching, there's no issue or problem with ordinance 4 that we just tabled, and we don't foresee an issue with getting the legal. We just, surveyors are very busy. So just to put on the record, there's no projected issue there. We just want to make sure everything's really tight when we get it to you. So I appreciate that. And until exec session, I'll stop there.
All right, good to know. Thank you. Next up, city administrator.
Mayor and council, you have my report with one request for action. As you'll see in the staff report, in the attached letter from the Haynes, we received 3 responsive bids, all within a reasonable range. And in reviewing those bids, we are comfortable with the low bid being awarded to Spectrum General Contractors for the rehabilitation of hose house number 2.
Thank you, Andy. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve, okay, that reads weird, okay. I'll move to approve the project work plan from historic, no, I'm on the wrong one, sorry. I'll move to approve a proposal from Spectrum General Contractors in the amount of $125,801.03 for the rehabilitation of hose house 2 from line item 21-61-7042 from Sites and Facilities Improvement Fund.
Why, thank you. And do I have a second?
I second.
First and a second discussion.
Is Spectrum a local contractor?
They've done work in the area before, so yes, they are local. They're just down the road in Denver.
Will this need to go back through HPRC? Because I was on the HPRC when we did this, and it was like well over a year ago.
You are spot on. Yes,
Okay.
we will need to renew the certificate of appropriateness, and we are planning to do that at the next HPRC meeting. But the scope of the project, nothing has changed.
Nothing has
With the
changed.
substance of it, it's just a matter of renewing the COA. So that's an excellent point.
That's
Yes.
good, because those doors are looking even sadder than ever.
Yes, they are.
The other thing I might mention that's in the report, we do have a $25,000 request that was made to the Historical Society of Idaho Springs for this purpose to go towards this project. So that will reduce the net cost to the city by a little more than $25,000 because of the interest that's accrued on that request.
And a personal note, Les Clark is the one who left behind the $25,000. The two of us would joke continuously about who was cheaper. Neither of us were ever cheap with people, but we wanted a good deal when we bought something. And I bring this up because he would be very proud today to know that his $25,000 turned into a $125,000 benefit for the city. So I know he would, he'd be clapping for sure.
Good, friend. That was very nice.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And the Assistant City Administrator, Jonathan.
Mayor and council, you have my staff report with one request for action.
All right. I'm going to ask for a motion that based on earlier conversation, I would like to have this motion amended to include the extra $12,700 for the lighting of the coach. If I could get that motion, please.
I don't have it on my, am I not looking at this correctly?
Number 13.
Number 13.
I'll
Oh,
move,
there you go. Good.
I'll move to approve the 2022 Coach 70 project work plan from Historic Rail Ventures LLC in the amount of $57,532 from line item 21-61-7042. Also to have an additional $12,700.
Yeah.
$700 for the lighting on the coach.
All right, and do I have a second?
Second.
First and a second discussion. I'm happy that we had discussed that really at length in the work session, and thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Thank you. And before I move on, I would like for Jonathan Kane to give council some good news. Real good news about the innovative housing.
Mayor and council, a few months months ago now, we applied for a grant in partnership with the county and the other municipalities in Clear Creek County. We're the fiscal sponsor, so we wrote it and submitted it to GOA for what's called an Innovative Housing Opportunity Grant, or called IHOP for short. So I've been calling it the pancake grant for a while now, but basically what this will do is give us the opportunity to really carefully think about what affordable housing is in Clear Creek County and Idaho Springs, what's appropriate and what's not. So the general plan is to create an engagement project throughout the county and each municipality to talk about what we all need and what we don't need in our cities, and how we might accommodate that kind of growth in a responsible and reasonable way. And then we want to do some work to take our planning codes and align them so that if say I am a developer of housing and I want to build a townhome project, and there's a project in Empire, or a place in Empire I could build it that's easier than Idaho Springs, that they can expect a similar process and procedure in Empire as they could in Idaho Springs. This is kind of the crux of this work, is to create an alignment of our municipal codes so that we can just make sure that it's easy to develop in the right places here in our county. You know, we've heard a lot of people say we want to have the right kind of development. We want to make sure people can live here, but we want the right things. This is the process that we can begin to start doing that and start answering this housing crisis in Clear Creek County in a way that's contextually sensitive to us and achieves our goals. The really cool thing about it is once we get through this work, we can start applying for a new fund from the Department of Housing to start funding some of the work that we will do, or that we could do potentially with this funding. So I'm really excited about it because it's going to be a really new thing in Colorado to work at this regional level and to do some of these things to try to promote just reasonable and responsible development. So I think it's going to be a really cool thing, and you should hear more about it as we finalize the contract and begin working. We'll need to enter an IGA with the county just to talk about how all this will work and with the other communities. And we want to make sure it's a really community-driven conversation here. So that's the intention, and I think we're going to start working on it pretty soon.
And that was a successful $165,000 grant.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
I would like to move to Deputy City Clerk.
Mayor and Council, you have my staff report in front of you with no requests for action.
All right, thank you, Winter. Over to Chief. Chief, you have anything extra for us tonight?
Yeah, staff report, and I just want to mention a couple things because it seems like it's been a while since we got together. So we had a significant incident at a motel that I forwarded, which has really kind of triggered us to start having some conversations within the city about potential regulation, but just something on the books that might help us with making sure that our motels are following some basic standard practices. So we're going to follow up on that. And then on a better note, though, I thought that the award ceremony went really well. Sergeant Sonnenberg was awarded the Officer of the Year award, which is, that's great for our city, for our department. And we did promote the two that I had discussed to sergeant during that event. And then I did recognize both Cindy and Danielle for their dedication to our agency during the sort of tumultuous time after we had a pretty significant incident. So that's going very well. And I just wanted to mention also that our officer is in his final, second to last phase of training. And so we're hoping to have him out on the streets here in the next month. And we also are sending an officer to an academy that will start in July. So we're moving forward.
Well, thank you. And, I just really was moved by your report over there at that motel and the child abuse. I have to say there isn't anything that would prepare folks for walking into a scene like that.
Right.
And the photos really drove it home.
Right. The officers and all emergency responders here in our county and our city, they do such a good job, and they're professionals. The other thing to mention is we had an officer save someone's life. It's mentioned in the staff report. Really, if he had not provided CPR, this younger lady, I think she was 23, would have probably died.
Was it heat?
Sorry?
Was it heat?
No, it was maybe other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought because it had been so hot, but yes.
So
Great job on
they're
all
doing great work. They
Yeah.
really are. That's all I have.
I also want to speak to Sergeant Sonnenberg at the award ceremony. He was recognized for having a motel incident eerily similar, except it was one child instead of three.
It was, we don't think that there was that sort of length of time in that other incident. Certainly was a few days.
Yeah.
So this other one was much more extreme.
Yeah, just horrific. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
May I ask a question? Have you implemented the new structure that we talked about with the 2 sergeants and
Correct.
and is that going well? Are you pleased with that?
Yes, I think it's going really well. I would say it's really in its infancy,
Mhm.
just from a couple weeks ago. So once we get this officer that's currently in training off, then we're gonna move back to 10-hour shifts, which is really nice
Nice.
versus a 12-hour shift. So that also helps with training. So far, so good. I think it's going really well.
All right, well, thank you very much. Moving to Public Works, Mr. Bardoni, looks like we have a couple requests there.
I do, Mayor and Council, you have my staff report. I have 2 requests for action. One for the restroom at Citizens Park, and the other to do some crosswalks and restriping on Colorado Boulevard.
All right, well, thank you. And do I have a motion?
I'm gonna move to approve the $188,453 to DJ Smith and Company LLC for Citizens Park restroom remodel from line item 21-00-6024. And I'm to say to John, I do appreciate you going out there with extra bids and trying to find that a better deal. Obviously, that's not out there right now, but I do appreciate the work that you put in for it.
If I may, just one caveat to that.
This is
We're going to try and save as much porcelain tile in there as we can. It may come back that we need to replace that, so the cost may.
I have a feeling it's gonna, and like construction's an open, it's an open.
All right, and thank you. With that qualifier, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second, discussion, please.
I also, since this was one of the first things that I voted on, I appreciate that you went out looking for this. I also appreciate that there were, you looked at asbestos and testing for mold. Like that was one of my concerns with the earlier bids. And I appreciate that you guys went out and looked at that, even though we may have to do some mold remediation. But I'm glad to know it up front versus not being sure.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it's fairly obvious in the bathroom, but
Yeah.
it needs to be done.
This was a lowest bidder before.
DJ, I think he was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
All right, anything further? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Second motion regarding the Public Works Department is for pavement markings. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve $30,000 to Colorado Barricade Company for pavement markings on Colorado Boulevard and Minor Street from line item number 20-00-6016.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
I'll second. John got it.
And discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, I would like to move down to mayor and council. And we have had an I-70 collaborative effort for many years. And there are literally millions of dollars and lots of impact on our city at stake with I-70, like literally in our backyards. So not only do we have a seat at the table, but our county serves to, well, they have been funding it, and they've been funding it alone for years. And there are things like monitoring the pollution levels, what happens with salt and sand mixtures running off into the creek. A lot of different things need to have a close eye on it and mitigation at times. And there's about $60,000 annually that is spent in doing this. And what the county has asked is that they're trying to have about the 12 or 13 different agencies such as Vail, Avon, Breckenridge, Idaho Springs, that are significantly impacted here with I-70 running through their cities, contribute and break it up about $5,000 a city. So we have facilitated this as a county. And I think we probably would feel this way. I mean, if Summit County, foot the whole bill for it. Our county has been footing the whole bill for this for many, many years. So Randy Wheelock, County Commissioner, had asked that we submit this to council for consideration. And given that we really do have a large dog in this fight, I personally think it makes sense for us to do our part and pay about 1/12 of what the budget is. So that is the one item that I have here, and I would like a discussion about this. And I also have more about the I-70 coalition if there's some questions.
You want a motion?
Yes.
Okay. I move to approve the $5,000 for the I-70 collaborative effort request for operational expenses.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Is there a line item? Line item?
I haven't identified that. That's probably, this is an unbudgeted item, but in the future, it'd probably come out of memberships and membership line item. Yep, we have that. And we have that for other things like Dr. Cog and I-70 Coalition, those sorts of things.
Well,
You need the line item
Thank you
for
for
the
that.
motion or not?
I don't think so.
I'm not gonna worry about it. Like Andy will find it for the budget in August. So
Yeah.
I'll have to put it someplace.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I have a motion, and do I have a second? Second. All right, motion and a second. Any discussion?
What's this, what are the expenses, just monitoring or?
The bulk of it has been staff time. And there's, of course, a lot of back and forth with CDOT.
It's just keeping an eyeball on them. I mean, isn't that kind of just watchdogging them?
Well, and I would suggest that there's going to be invariably some time with grant attempts. And I'll give you an example. I think we have 5 I-70 monitors right here in our area monitoring the different pollution levels. That's important. It could have an impact on our citizens. And with what's found, warrant perhaps additional mitigation for our city. But somebody had to spend time, with that negotiation with I-70, CDOT, I should say.
So that's more air quality.
Well, and that's a big one. It's just a real big one, because I think most of us recognize, the traffic impact with 40,000+ cars going by, having a very negative impact on our citizens with 40,000 exhaust pipes, going past our homes. I was mentioning with winter operations, we have stuff they put down on the road that may have an impact on our creek as well, our watershed.
Right. Aqua is gonna discuss that next meeting about
good.
upgrading their, we have down by 2 Bears. We have a station down Martin Station. We're gonna look at upgrading that, especially during this 5-year construction,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So if you need Aqua to give you numbers, I can get you numbers.
oh, good. Okay, good to know.
Put it into this.
All right, very, very good. Any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jim Clark. Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. I just want to ask if there is anything more that anyone has before I adjourn our regular meeting. Yes.
I just have a quick question. Some months ago, we talked about a charging station for electric vehicles.
Yep.
Where's that? Are we not doing it?
We have not heard anything more on that, so I don't know. I'd have to check to see what the status is on that. Maybe you know, John.
Actually, they've done potholing for utilities over in that area for XL to install the power over to that side. What's the name of the company? Charge point.
Oh, all right. Oh, very good. Thank you, Art.
Very small. Can we get a couple fans in here, Andy, because I'm gonna die. Okay, number one. And then I just want to let everybody, it's too hot, like it's too hot. And then just like everybody know that I know we don't have a meeting, we do have a meeting next Monday, but it is Juneteenth. It is now a recognized federal holiday, so I just like to put that out there. I don't know what is that gonna change in the future for us, but it is a recognized holiday, so I want to put this in there. That's what she does.
One thing I might mention on that, each year, council does have a resolution to adopt the holiday schedule for each year, so it should really be considered as part of that.
Yeah, I just want to throw it out there that it's still.
Kate, a big thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
To address everyone again, and it's better that actually no one else is here.
I don't know, I think that's up to the chair.
Oh,
We gotta.
Bruce, I'm sorry.
It's just a silly little comment, and if you, 30 seconds of your time, that's all I'm asking, and it's in all of our best interest.
Bruce, normally, I would say no, but if you could keep it to 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, with Carlson and maybe getting sold, and maybe some of that land could be used towards the skate park and a community center. Me and some of the other business owners in town have been talking, and, I don't know what all you guys have planned so far, but we'd like to be in the loop. We're interested in purchasing the property.
Bruce, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And with that, is there anything further before I adjourn our regular meeting?
Just one detail, we are doing things a little bit different with the executive session.
Yes.
At the end of the meeting. Technically, you're not adjourning the regular meeting yet, you're just.
Gotta make a motion to go into
into
executive
executive
session, and then at the end of the executive session, I'll make a motion to go back into regular session.
Right, and you might just mention for the public's interest that when you go into executive session, you'll only come back into the regular meeting to adjourn. So
Yes.
Anybody who's watching, there won't be any other business conducted. You're just going to executive session, and then the meeting will, all meetings will end.
Yes, and thank you. This is the first time that I'm aware of that we're doing an executive session after regular session. And so I would make a point that we are not adjourning, but our regular session, it is now 8:18, and I would like to make a motion that we go into our executive session. Should I read our spiel?
Yes, if you would, please.
All right.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, guys, thank you.
Thanks, Wonder.
Yes.
John, yeah, she's in the other meeting. I need to close my meeting and you need to open the
Really hard.
executive session.
On my computer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna